I forgot to turn the mic on. And I've worked in television for almost 40 years, and I forgot to turn the mic on. This is too funny. All right, so you know what, folks? I'm going to, let me just switch over. Let me apologize to everybody. I am so sorry. It's 40 years in television, and I forget to turn the mic on. All right, you know what? I'm going to try this again. And I will try this again. I'll do another stream right now. Okay? Excuse me. So let me end this, and we will start it again. Okay, hi everybody. It's Joe Cioffi. I turned the microphone on. I apologize for that. You know, I've been doing this. I've been in TV since 1979. We're coming up on 38 years in television, and I forget to turn the mic on. It happens, but anyhow, let's start again, and I'm going to check right now to see if we have verification of this. So if somebody can tell me if the mic is on, that would be great. Okay, so I'm guessing you can hear me. You all can hear me. You guys can hear me? All right, I'm going to take it as a yes. I'll check the chat. Oh, great. Okay, thank you, Karina Rivera. I really appreciate that. Okay, so let's start all over again. And I'm going to make me small. And I'm going to find that water vapor loop. What did I do with the water vapor loop? Nope, that's not it. Oh, you know, I'm not having a good day here, folks. Cannot find the water vapor loop. Oh, there it is. Yay. Isn't live TV is great. This sort of thing happens a lot. Okay, so you know what? I want to address over the last number of days. You know, we've been talking about how the GFS model, and a lot of people have been, you know, bought it hook, line, and sinker with respect to that model developing a tropical storm and then eventually a hurricane, and on several runs, even a major hurricane. And it took it anywhere from up the East Coast to just off the East Coast to over Florida to across the Gulf states, down through the Caribbean and into Texas. And the other models, the other global models, the Canadian and the European, did nothing of the sort. And I guess it should have been a clue when the Canadian didn't do it, because the Canadian model has a reputation for spinning everything that moves, and it didn't do that. And I'm wondering whether the new GFS, the last upgrade they did of the GFS model, has really sent that model for a big tailspin, because we've been getting these large errors, and it's not a surprise. When you see some of these, you know, when you see some of these posts on Facebook or on Twitter or on the internet talking up these models, you know, it's anybody can look at a map and see what a system is doing. That's not forecasting. That is not meteorology. Okay. You look at the models and then you ask yourself, does this make sense? Does it? And in this particular instance, it did not make sense given the time of year. Major hurricanes don't usually occur through the first couple of weeks of July. The other thing, and you know, we've been pointing out the fact that there's been this tremendous amount of dry air out in the Atlantic, in the tropical Atlantic. That remains the case. If anything, the area has expanded. It looks like another area of dry air has come off Africa and moved out into the tropical Atlantic. So as long as that dry air is present, any tropical waves that come out are going to get that dry air intruding into it, and they're just not going to be able to develop. We also have this large upper low sitting well to the east of Florida, almost about halfway out. And you can see that its circulation dominates a large portion of that part of the Atlantic down to about 20 degrees north. And that produces quite a bit of strong winds in the upper atmosphere, producing wind shear conditions that are hostile to tropical storm development. So you also have that playing here and keeping things from developing. So until you get a change and until we see this dry air disappear, these tropical waves are going to have a very difficult time developing. And I would suggest that we're probably not going to see anything, certainly not in the next week. And maybe even a little bit beyond that. That would not be unusual. Even in some very active years, you don't get very much happening during the month of at least the first half of the month of July. Maybe toward the latter part of the month, yes. But, the first 20 days or so of the month of July usually are pretty quiet. So at least for now, the tropics in the Atlantic basin are playing according to climatology. So we'll lay that aside now and take a look at what's happening with regards to our weather here in the Northeast. It turned very humid today as we are beginning, we're saturating the air with south-southwest winds. And at the same time, we have these disturbances that are coming through. Each one is triggering off some thunderstorms. We had some this evening in a few places across eastern Pennsylvania, New Jersey, and into parts of Long Island for a change. Water temperatures are now up to 70, so these thunderstorms are going to have an easier time to hold together if there's a decent upper air disturbance to support it. And we did have one go by this evening. There's another one moving through overnight that might produce a downpour. We don't see anything on the radar as of midnight. And then you can see several other disturbances upstream. One is going to come through late Wednesday, and another one is going to come late Thursday. The Storm Prediction Center has us in a marginal risk of severe weather right through Thursday night, which would make sense. And I would not be surprised to see some strong boomers develop over time. Now let's look quickly at what we're going to see with regards to the long range. And we have, excuse me, the GFS model. And I'm going to, whoops, didn't want to do that. This is the upper air of the GFS across the United States. And one of the things that we're seeing, if you think back to, one of we would, describing the weather pattern overall in the fact that, in May, we had a brief interruption in the pattern where we have a trough in the east and a general ridge in the west, where the ridge builds into the eastern part of the United States, and it did for about 3 days in mid-May. It did it again, and then the pattern flips back to what it was. Then it did it again in mid-June, and I'm thinking it might do it again as we head toward around July 8th, 19th, 20th, 21st. If you look here at the map for today, you have this west-east flow where the southern part of the jet stream is down into northern Virginia. So we're getting air masses coming down from the north that are going to be influencing our weather. The ridge in the west is kind of flattened out a little bit, which has lessened the heat somewhat. But as we move through the week and into the weekend and beyond, that ridge in the west pops up yet again. And we get a weather system that moves through the east late this week that is going to bring us, the thunderstorms for Thursday, and then maybe even some rain and an onshore wind on Friday. But that ridge pops right back up in the west. Now, as we go through later next week, what happens, you'll notice that the ridge part of it begins to try to push toward the east coast. And by the end of the week, the southernmost edge of the jet stream is running right into the northern mid-Atlantic states. We get that ridge tries to push in right about here. You see it there. This is around July 19th, 20th, 21st. So it would argue that we could have, couple of days, looks like 2 to 3 days maybe of very hot weather coming into the east. But just like the other instances where that happened, as we move toward July 23rd and 24th and so on, that ridge goes back to the west, and you start to get that trough again in the east. So everything seems to be just kind of playing out according to plan. I don't see any real change in the overall structure of the jet stream pattern across the United States for the next couple of weeks. And with that being the case, we're just going to continue to see, these fronts come through in the Northeast. Looks like this weekend we may see another shot of drier air with lower humidity that'll come in for a couple of days, so that'll be good. We'll get a break from the high humidity and very warm to hot temperatures that we're going to see Wednesday and Thursday. Thursday especially, we could see temperatures in part. I wouldn't be surprised to see temperatures in parts of New Jersey and southeastern Pennsylvania reach the low to mid 90s before this weather front moves on through. So let me just check the chat, because now you actually heard me. When will the fall forecast come out, PlayStation Boss? Okay, let me just tell you, by the way, I kind of decided back months ago, and I'm going to stick with this. Long range is not my specialty at all. I have a really tough time getting my head around it. Let's call it a short range kind of guy. I like to look at things, inside the 2-week period. I can get my head around it. But beyond that, going out a month, 2 months, 3 months in terms of a general forecast, I'm not good at this. There's too many things to look at across the world. There's a lot of people that are very knowledgeable about El Nino, La Nina, these oscillations that go on in the Atlantic and in the Pacific. Admittedly, I have a basic view of these things, but because my job is basically to short range, I haven't been able to spend a lot of time really learning about this, and it really requires a lot of energy and schooling in order to really understand how the long range works. And even those people who know it well know that the variables in it are very, very large. So I'm not going to do a fall forecast, and I probably won't do a wintertime forecast either, because again, that is not my strong suit and it's not my thing. Let me make myself bigger again, and then we'll go back to the chat. But I appreciate the questions. And by the way, when you do post on the chat, let me know what your geographic area is that you're at. If it's relevant to your question, it'll help me give you a better answer. Thank you for Okie AG from North Texas, South Oklahoma. I appreciate the kind words. Thank you. And Lee Hart, thank you. Thank you for being here, and appreciate your patience in my silliness for forgetting how to turn a microphone on. Golden Twister 888 says, excuse me, Eastern Pacific getting active. Yes, that is the case. And usually when the Pacific side is busy in the tropics, the Atlantic side is quiet, especially during the early part of the season. That doesn't always hold true when you get deeper into August and September. But oftentimes when the Atlantic gets super active, when you have a couple of major hurricanes running around, the Pacific side tends to be very quiet. So far, the Pacific is behaving in a way that is pretty average. The Atlantic, we had our two named, let's forget Arlene, that was back in April, but we had 2 named storms in June, which is high. I mean, you can go, most Junes you don't really get a named tropical storm, but we already have had 2 of them. But July right now is reverting back to some sense of normalcy. So you know what? Let's leave it at that. I appreciate your kindness and your patience here. And if you're new to, let's see, Matters says, can the trough in the east just stay there till the winter so we get some crazy systems? Okay. One of the things about this trough in the east is, if it was in the wintertime, we would be getting shots of cold air. But one of the things that we have right now is we don't have any kind of blocking in the atmosphere. So these fronts are moving along. They're not stalling out. So, if literally this pattern were to hold through the wintertime, you'd get shots of cold air, but then you would get these highs moving out offshore, and you'd probably just have cold front after cold front rather than dealing with storms that give you favorable tracks up the East Coast to bring snowstorms. So you have to have a few other things in the atmosphere change. You not only need the trough in the east, but you do need to have a little bit of blocking. Although sometimes, even without blocking, if you have the trough deep enough and you have enough cold air, we had 2 winters here, the winter of 13, 14, and 14, 15, where there was very little blocking. And we wound up with quite a bit of snow in both those winters because there were other factors were at play, especially in terms of the magnitude of the cold air that we were dealing with in those winters. And yes, golden twisted, the ridge trying to pop up in the east, but the pattern is very persistent. So if that ridge does pop up, you'll probably see it last only for a couple of days and then goes back to the way it was, which is back to the heat wave conditions out in the west and back to cold front after cold front coming in to the east. All right, folks, have a great evening. Thank you for being here. If you're new to my channel, welcome. And do subscribe to my YouTube channel because you'll get your notifications of these live streams. And I promise that the microphone will be turned on the next time. And of course, you can check out much more on my Facebook page, meteorologist Joe Cioffi. And I'm on Twitter also at Joe Cioffi. So everybody have a great evening, rest of your night, actually. And I'll be fishing tomorrow morning. And I'll probably do another live stream tomorrow night around this time. So enjoy your Wednesday, and try to stay cool if you are in the Northeast and the northern Mid-Atlantic states, and for that matter, if you're out in the West as well. All right, take care, guys and gals.